This episode is powered by Bandzoogle, the easiest all-in-one website platform for pro musicians and bands. You know who controls all your social media followers? Of course you do. Social media companies control who sees what and when they see it. Two things that will help ensure you're in control of your music business and your fan-based community are a website and an email list. Bandzoogle can help you with both. Plus, a solid website makes you look legitimate. Serious musicians, singers, songwriters, composers, and performers know this to be true. If you don't yet have your own website, check out Bandzoogle. It was created by musicians for musicians. I use it and I love it. It's as easy to use gets, and you don't have to worry about updates for things like plugins and security patches. Bandzoogle takes care of that for you. The features and support are both incredible. See for yourself. Go to bandzoogle.com to start your 30-day free trial. Use the promo code Robonzo to get 15% off your first year. Plans start at just $8.29 a month. That's bandzoogle.com, promo code Robonzo, ROBONZO, to start your free trial today. Let's do the show. This is The Unstarving Musician. I'm your host, Robonzo. On this podcast, I have conversations with independent music artists and industry professionals intended to help indie artists be better at marketing, business, the creative process, and all the other things that empower us to do more of what we love: make music. Would you like to help other independent musicians find this podcast? Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast service. It really helps. The Unstarving Musician podcast is made possible through the generosity of listeners like you. One of the easiest ways to offer support is to join the Unstarving Musician community. Just go to unstarvingmusician.com and join right there on the homepage. As a member, you'll receive from me tips and lessons you can use in your music journey. And this isn't just coming from me and my years of experience as a gigging musician. It also comes from the wisdom of hundreds of other musicians I've talked to as part of the Unstarving Musician project and podcast. You'll also get a free copy of the Unstarving Musician's Guide to Getting Paid Gigs ebook, and that's all free just for being part of the community. To learn more about other ways of offering your support for the podcast, please visit our sponsor page at unstarvingmusician.com/crowdsponsor. Neil Schnell is one of my bestest pals on this planet. He helped me live some of my best memories as a performing musician whilst I was living La Vida Loca in the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas. He was making his living performing as a solo artist here recently with his trio Velvet Love Box and various other ensembles until the Rona. That's what the kids are calling the virus, right? I say recently. He's been doing this for a long time, him and his band for over 20 years, his trio, that is Velvet Love Box. I wanted to have him back on the podcast. He has been here before in one of the very early episodes you should check out. After I spoke with him about live streaming and watched a couple of his streams, we've also been talking lately because I want him to play bass and contribute harmonies on my forthcoming single, and I think he's in, which I'm super excited about. I think this conversation is fantastic. If you've been on the fence about live streaming and accepting online tips, or maybe other areas of it, or maybe against either of those things, or both of them, and everything live streaming stands for. I don't know what that is, but if you're already doing live streaming, tune in anyway. This is a good conversation. I also asked Neil a rapid-fire round of questions for a writing and podcast episode project I'm working on. He is featured on a new release by our mutual friend Lannie Flowers. Lannie Flowers. The release is called Home, which you can find everywhere fine digital music is sold. I bet you they're even going to release it on vinyl. I don't know that for sure, but I bet they're going to do that. I streamed it today, or the other day. Not today yet, but I've been checking it out, and I want to pick up a physical copy from Lannie. He's a cool guy, and the album features several friends of mine. Lannie was also featured on this podcast a couple of times. I need to have him back on soon, too. So Neil is getting back into doing his in-person performances, but with mixed emotions. He has a great fan base, though, so I know it'll make some folks happy to see him and his bandmates in person. I have a link to his Facebook group, Velvet Love Box Shows, in the show notes. You should join it and check out his live streams. Tell him the Unstarving Musician Robonzo sent you. He's doing very well with it and encourages others to try it. Okay, here is me and my good friend Neil Schnell. How you doing today?
I'm all right. A little tired, but other than that, I'm always tired at this point.
Where were you?
I was just here. Brandon and I played last night here at the house.
Cool.
But
Did you do a Facebook Live?
yeah, yeah, but
Nice.
just that, we always set out to basically, hey, we're going to play for about an hour, and then we end up playing for 3.
I've heard, this is all kind of new in a way, but I've heard that it's good to limit the performances, but your virtual tip jar may say otherwise.
Basically, I've been going with especially now that I've been able to have somebody else playing with me. I mean, if I'm playing by myself, I usually limit to about an hour and a half. Unless, like you said, unless there's a whole bunch of people online and I'm getting a lot of flow coming through the tip jar. With Brandon, I mean, we were just kind of just having fun and going, and more people are getting on, and even more people come on, and so we were just trying to keep up with the audience.
Well, that's good. Sounds like it was a good time. How late did you guys play?
We played till about 11, so we played 8 to 11.
Cool. You out of curiosity, do you just advertise these on your personal Facebook page? Well, I guess you do that, and on the band page.
Yeah, well, the band group that I did, Velvet Love Box shows, because of the algorithm, the evil overlord algorithm of Facebook. You don't reach but a fraction of your audience unless you're willing to, pay every single time you post something
Yep.
from your actual Facebook page. But if you start a group,
Yep.
then anything you post in the group pops up in people's feeds. So it's a voluntary thing. So many people have to come and actually ask to join it. But there's a couple of thousand people on it at this point. I'd have to
Can't you make it an open group though? Like no.
You can, but I still, I'm trying to keep out spammers and stuff like that.
Sure. Well, that's cool. I I was laughing, going, "God, am I a member of that group?" But I didn't even realize it was a group, and I know exactly what you're talking about. And sadly, I'm afraid that Facebook's going to find a way to fuck with that too by changing algorithms.
More than likely. Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it was just the cooling fan on my desktop.
So, what's the status with the band? I haven't heard from guitarist Scott Cloud lately.
Yeah. Well, we were set to have our first gig back as full band on June 26th at Broncos. And unfortunately, like after we had already booked it and everything else, Scott is having some nerve issues with his left hand. He's got a pinched nerve in his neck, and he's numb on his left thumb, index finger, and middle finger, and he has excruciating pain shooting down his left arm. That's been going on for about a week, and he went to see a massage therapist, which is great, but she's not a doctor. And he's like, oh, she says it's a pinched nerve. It's like, well, that's awesome. He's only gone the one time, and excruciating pain, and he's not going to a doctor. So now,
on purpose or because he can't?
No, I mean he totally can. He's just I don't understand. I don't know. He's just being Scott, quite honestly.
Like, well, maybe he should see a chiropractor.
Right? I mean, that's what Brandon suggested.
I'll give him a hard time for you.
I'd just like for him to do, I would like for him to be a little bit more aggressive on the treatment, or at least finding out exactly what it is. Because, without a proper diagnosis of what exactly is causing the problem, I mean, you can actually do more damage than good by, going to having it massaged, or taking the wrong pills, or doing the wrong, he's basically been Googling and YouTubing.
People are funny. We are funny with our health, aren't we?
I'm just like, there are things you spend the money on, man, and your health is one of them.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, Sammy and I are pretty good about this, but I frequently find myself just in case she's having doubts about one of us maybe seeing someone or going to some lengths to see someone, like, hey, what's the price of our health worth? And it
Right.
sounds silly, but I mean, you don't have anything. I've had some for the first time in my life some chronic neck and upper back issues, and it's kind of weird. And especially right now and where we are in Panama, the chiropractor we see is like an hour and a half away on a good traffic day, and we can't even go there because of the quarantine. So, needless to say, I'm an advocate of taking care of ourselves, but yeah, hopefully he'll come around and stop waiting for YouTube to make him better or something. I'll give him a hard time for
Yeah, I
it.
mean, the thing about it is too is that I mean he's still selling real estate and he's doing fine there, so he doesn't need band money at all.
But he
But
needs to stay healthy.
yeah, he does, and he's like, oh, I really want to play. And I'm like, okay. And he suggested having Chris come and play with us, and that's fine for just a regular gig. If we
Yeah,
were
yeah.
if we were playing and we were going along, and he got hurt, it wouldn't be a big thing to have a sub. But for this long of being down, everybody is, all of our fan base is basically just clamoring for that first show, and we can't say, "Hey, here's the Velvet Love Box show." By the way, it's not actually Velvet Love Box. Here's Neil, Brandon, and Chris. That's just not going to fly, or at least it's not something that I would want to do. I wouldn't want to promote it as Velvet Love Box and then not have it be that.
You guys have been a band for how many years now?
23. It'll be 23 years in August.
That's amazing. Yeah, I can understand that, and you're a trio and all that. Yeah. Well, I hope he gets better soon, and I will give him a hard time for you.
Please.
So I want to talk about live streaming because I know it's a little bit new for you, but you definitely latched onto it. And the first time we actually talked about it, you mentioned you were already talking about things you learned, doing the Venmo, PayPal thing, and I noticed something that you've been kind of coaching. Like Brandon's done more than a couple shows now, I guess, or a couple, and I saw you do one with Chris, and I happened to watch some of these, and I saw you sort of, I don't know about coaching, but you'd be like, "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, it's a little weird because there's not actually people out there when you finish
Yeah,
the song."
it definitely takes some getting used to. Obviously, when Brandon came over, his wife Julia came with him, and we had a friend of ours coming and just hanging out. He came over for dinner, and so we actually like last night. So actually had 4 people in our audience. But Julia makes herself useful. She's our bubble machine. Basically, she just brings,
Nice.
brought a bottle of bubbles and will just blow them out there occasionally.
That's fantastic.
But
Um,
strange thing to get used to. And I was trying to remember last night, and I still don't remember how many weeks I've been doing this now. And I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 12, maybe 13 weeks that I've been doing this. And now that I've gone back out and started playing some shows live, it's just as weird to have people responding and having people in front of you. It's almost distracting now.
That's kind of funny because you've been doing it for well over 23 years because you and I played together for a long time before Velvet Love Box came into existence. And
Right.
you and I were both playing separately for a good while before that and in front of people. And so I'm sure it makes you laugh a little bit, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, it was very, very odd the very first time that I went out and played. Whenever I'm doing the online thing, usually I've got a whole song list, which I've gotten away from for over 2 decades. I'll have a list of what I know, but I just kind of pick and choose as at the moment feels right or as requests come in and things like that. And it's very free form. And I plan things out a whole lot more whenever I'm doing the online because there's, dead air is just terrible or it's very uncomfortable, I should say. But trying to get back to that, I was like, I have no idea what I know. I've learned I over this over the I've learned over 50, and so I have all these things to choose from, and then I still have what I had in my repertoire before, and suddenly it's almost information overload, and I'll find myself with a crowd in front of me, and I have no idea what to play next. But
That's funny. Tell me that you had fun with the crowd the first time you realized it was strange and weird that it was strange, and maybe said something like, "Can you guys pretend like you're not there for like maybe a few songs so I can get used to this?"
I'm
Are
sorry,
you
you
there?
broke up there for just a second.
Oh, sorry. You know what? Well, let me just go ahead and ask you a question that is not related to our conversation, but if you or ask you to do me a favor if you can, and that is to open up chat on. Thank you.
That's what I
So
was doing.
just yeah,
I missed
keep your
me.
yeah, just keep your eye on that and let me know if you lose me. I'll do the same. I've been
Okay.
noticing this problem. That's funny. As a podcaster, I have not been using Zoom, but my preference was Skype with this thing called Call Recorder, and I would just call you on your phone, right? But that the call recorder piece kind of broke recently, and it's kind of working, but it's not. So I've just said, okay, I'll upgrade, get a pro Zoom account, and just use this, and maybe someday they'll get it together and start working. But anyway, um, yeah, I was saying, please tell me you had fun with your live audience, the first one that you've done recently, and ask them to like pretend like they weren't there for a few songs until you got used to them being there.
Oh yeah, I definitely mentioned it to them. This is really weird being around people, and you know, I played. I guess it was the very first night that bars were able to open again. So that's only been about 4 weeks ago, I guess. It was the
Wow.
weekend of May. Um, and yeah, I went and played at Cartel Taco Bar, which I think you guys went to when you came into town. Um, and there was, restaurants were also able to go up to 50% at that point, and it was very strange. Yeah, I mean, there were tables really spread out and not very many people. There were more people out on the patio, but they had me playing inside, which was fine. But yeah, I mean, everybody was just kind of looking at each other like, I don't know, is this okay? We're out in public again. We're supposed to be around each other. Um, and the crowd was, I mean, it was a nice crowd, but it wasn't terribly, uh, it wasn't terribly, I guess, interactive. And the following week, Brandon and I went and did a duo show up in Grapevine. Similar size crowd, but they just went just crazy for us. And it was such a nice difference, and that energy I had really missed. I mean, it actually made me well up just a little bit for a minute when they gave us a standing ovation, and like, oh, this is what I missed.
Was this a first time performance at that particular venue?
No, no, and it was a Wednesday. I mean, it was um,
Don't. And what? Tell me
sorry,
where it was. Tell me where it was again.
we were at Tolbert's.
Where's that?
It's in Grapevine,
Okay.
Tolbert's Chili Parlor, whatnot.
I
See,
love
now
it.
I'm trying to listen and
I know. Don't let them
okay,
distract you. I don't want you to feel like every message I put there is an emergency. For those of you that are going to listen to this in the future, I'm chatting with Neil on the side here. We're using Zoom audio only, and maybe I don't know. I purposefully don't use video because I want to maximize bandwidth for the audio, which is kind of my normal format. And so I'm trying to let Neil know in chat, like if I can't hear him, and I just send him another message. So we're having these awkward side conversations. Anyway, and
yeah,
for those of
you're
you, go ahead.
sorry.
No, please.
I was just gonna say, yeah, you're sending me in all these different directions.
Take your time, man. It's cool. And for anyone who's listening and maybe wondered where's Grapevine. So Neil and I are both from the Dallas Fort Worth area. At least I think you're from there, right? That's where we
Yes,
met.
yeah,
Yeah. And Grapevine is part of the greater Dallas Fort Worth area. I guess it's on the other side of DFW International Airport from where Neil lives. And you live in Fort Worth proper? I forget.
I live in Arlington.
Okay. How is Arlington nowadays? What would you say about it as a town? I forget if you could go back in time before the virus.
I mean, it is textbook urban sprawl,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah. Okay.
Um, it's got a very large landmass, and almost all of it is has been has been turned into commercial property. it's all been built on. They built out instead of up, and now they're trying to start building up in downtown a little bit. I mean, it's a strange city. It is the largest city in the country without mass transit.
Wow. I ask because kind of again, people listening, I did most of my growing up in Arlington. I was born in Fort Worth, and my formative years, well, I should say my formative years were actually in Arlington. And having been away from it for decades now, when I go back, I'm kind of down on it because it's just this commercial urban sprawl. On the upside, though, I would say for music prior to the pandemic that there are a lot more opportunities to venues to play at than there once were. Of course, that's all kind of mucked up at the moment, but
No, that's absolutely true. I've from a solo standpoint, and for that matter, for the duo shows, I have a lot more opportunities to work close to home, which is very nice, and especially in this, even with the pandemic, now that things are starting to open up, nobody has the budget for full bands, so most of the stuff that I had on the books for Velvet Love Box has turned into either a solo show or and Arlington. I mean, I'll be playing tonight and tomorrow, both here in town. So it's nice to be able to do that, to have that as an option. You know, as long as people aren't paying what they used to pay an hour to get there, it's small consolation, but it's consolation nonetheless.
how do you feel about playing live shows? And I ask because I had another two-time guest, which you're in that club now, but another two-time guest tell me that he was going out to do his first live performance, and he was really he had a lot of mixed feelings about it. And I've spoken to yet another person who has mixed feelings about doing it, just thinking about, well, do I want to invite my friends? I feel like I'm putting them at risk, and but I want to play and all these things. How do you feel about it?
I'd have to agree with that. It's conflicted, I suppose, would be the way I would describe it. Yeah, on one hand, it's I want to get back out there and I want to work. And on the other hand, yeah, are you putting people at risk? Are you putting yourself at risk? I haven't actually been able to give my mom a hug in months because she'll be 81 in November, and I'm just not going to risk it. I'll go over and we'll talk through the screen door and whatnot. But
That's kind of sad, but you're a good boy, though.
It's very surreal. Most of actually all of the places that I've played so far, the turnout's been pretty low. People are distancing. They're keeping to the regulations and whatnot, or the recommendations, and that's fine. I've seen pictures. I've heard stories of other places that are just completely disregarding any kind of suggestion from the CDC and just piling people in as much as they can. I have thankfully not been to any of those places or found myself in that situation. And with that in mind, just from my own standpoint, I've gone ahead and just put a moratorium on private parties for right now because there's no regulation when it comes to something going on at someone's house. I'm just not going to put myself in a position where that could be the case.
That's smart, and I hadn't really thought about that. You guys, and Velvet Love Box, and maybe even the spinoff Bit of the Box, and maybe even yourself are pretty accustomed to, and I guess kind of popular in the private party, private event circuit, I guess. And so yeah, that's smart. Let's back up to live streaming for a minute. There's something I've been dying to ask you, which there's a little bit of value in here, even though it's just, I always say morbid curiosity, which I'm not really sure that's an appropriate expression most of the time that I use it. But and the reason I think it's relevant is because I'm sending out some kind of basic tips for people to think about. Sometimes we forget about these things, and one of them is dressing up the stage, with lighting and props. And I mentioned to you in an email to my list today that I have this this friend of mine, Neil Schnell, even features Muppets in his live streams. So the question is, because Sammy and I, my wife and I, were watching a couple of your streams, and the very first time we're like, okay, we can't tell what's actually there, and if some of that is virtual, like the board that has your PayPal, Venmo stuff on it, and then the Muppets. Are those things actually in the room with you, or some of them being cast onto the
No, no, everything. The only thing that has been added virtually was a few weeks ago when my wife Mel, who acts as my producer and director and videographer and everything else, um, she switched over to using OBS software, which is what we're streaming through, and that allowed her to be able to do an overlay. So on Thursdays, she'll have the Tanstoppel Pub logo up in the corner, and just it'll say Questionable Action Thursday across the bottom. And on Mondays, it just says Sasquatch Monday and has a little Sasquatch logo up in the corner. Everything else is right there in the room. So I actually have 3 display Muppets that I got from a friend of mine years and years ago, and they usually sit on my desk upstairs. Um, and we just added one in at some point, and immediately people noticed. So I gave it a few weeks and then added another Muppet, and now I have all 3 of them down there. And we actually have a 4th Muppet upstairs that might join us at some point, but it's starting to get difficult to maneuver around.
You know what? How fortunate that Tanstaffel Pub, is that what it's called?
Yes.
That they, who are located in Arlington, Texas, where Neil is, that they provided you a stage to do these live streams from, because you dressed it up, but I had to say that it provided a brilliant backdrop. I mean, a lot of our friends, I'm sure you've seen, are doing this kind of thing from home, many of them for the first time, and of course they know, okay, I got to do something with this. I got to make a backdrop, I got to make a set here, and it's little by little, like it was for you. Add 1 Muppet, add 2, now you can't move around, but it really provided a beautiful dive bar vibe for your streams that I enjoyed seeing.
Well, I will also clarify that we are not filming at the Tanstoff. We are filming in my house. We're downstairs in my basement.
That's amazing. That's so funny.
That's my music room, game room. So that's all posters on the wall from either shows I've gone to or been a part of. Yeah,
that's great. Here I was thinking, wow, yeah. So I kind of remember that place. It looks a lot brighter, but yeah.
Yeah, basically I've got a couple of stage lights off to the side that I'm bouncing off the ceiling to just kind of get a night wash. But the other part of that too is what the Tanstoppel has done is now they've been back open, but business isn't. I mean, it's still slow going. Things are rebuilding. So they're not making enough money right now to pay for me to come down there and play. So, but they have been pulling down the big screen, and so they're live streaming me to the people there who are there. So I've returned, at least in virtual form, to performing at the bar on Thursdays.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, super kudos to you for making such a great game room that it sounds like maybe with a couple of lights and a Muppet, you kind of were set. So that's great.
Yeah, bar would frown on me having a Jaeger machine on stage.
Who frowned upon?
I said the bar, if we were filming at the bar, they would have a problem with me having a Jaeger machine.
That's funny.
So that's been our newest prop, was that Brandon and Julia brought a little, nice Jaeger machine. So I have that sitting in between Brandon and I, or whoever my guest is. And I've named it Katie Bot because Katie would be my normal bartender on Thursday nights. So I'm going to have a surrogate just right there.
Great. I love it. I had mixed feelings about the Jaeger machine. I saw it and I'm like, I don't know if I like that, but I get why it's there. Jaeger's pretty synonymous with Velvet Lovebox and Neil Schnell, so it works.
Well, and Brandon's wife, Julia, actually works for Moss Jägermeister as well. So
yeah, man. Okay, it's all good.
She's a wonderful brand ambassador.
Nice. My reservations about it are gone. So, okay, so something arguably more important about live streaming. Let's let's pretend for a moment we have some people that are going to listen to this that haven't done it. They're kind of nervous about it. It might feel a little over their head because they just don't, they basically go out and play. They don't do video. Um, and also another thing I've heard, is like I hear a lot of I've heard this from artists that are actually doing it, and I've heard it from artists that weren't doing it. I haven't talked to everyone lately, that I initially talked to, but I've kind of heard this sentiment that, like, yeah, every musician is out there begging right now. And I don't really see it that way at all. Um, so, what would you say to someone though that is on the fence or like kind of paralyzed by this situation, and maybe they're not? Maybe you have words of encouragement, or maybe I need to think of them for people that aren't necessarily singers like you are. I mean, I know you've written some music in the past, but I wouldn't say you're an active songwriter as of late.
Sure.
So here you are, a guy that has just really enjoyed um, doing bar gigs, private parties, playing covers. You have a small catalog of originals from a while back, I think, and I know we've talked about you writing some new stuff, and you're even um, threatening by request to collaborate with me on something I'm working on. But what would you say to these people that are a little, intimidated by it?
It can certainly be a daunting thing. I had no idea how to do it, honestly. And Mel was actually the one who encouraged me, my wife. She encouraged me to do it that first week. And we just went very, very simply. I did a little bit of research, and what I wanted was something to be able to go from my normal PA head that I use for solo shows. I wanted something that I could go from that to my iPhone. And I just, did a Google search, did maybe, I don't know, 30 minutes worth of research or something. And I came across a device called the iRig Stream. So iRig makes an entire line of I guess they're DA converters, I suppose, um, to where you can, play like your guitar into your phone and record things and stuff. This one is specifically designed for streaming. So it is an RCA input. So I take the recording out of my head into the iRig stream. It has one big knob in the middle and three lights that say, okay, either low signal, good signal, or clipping, and you just dial that in. The other end is uh, a replaceable cable that can either go to Lightning connection for an iPhone, micro USB, or regular USB. So that was the biggest thing. I wanted the sound to be good. Because that's always been my biggest complaint about some of the people who've been doing it. Even some really well-known artists who are just, here's a phone sitting up, on a patio table and going to play out here, and you can hear birds and all that, and that's fine. But just the overall quality of the sound wasn't great. So I focused in on just the things I could control to, I guess, allay some of my apprehension about trying to put myself on camera. So I made certain, just wanted to make sure it sounded good, and my wife took care of whether or not it looked good. Like you said, we actually put some time into considering where to film so that it actually looked interesting, because I didn't want to beat people over the head with it. But to get kind of back to your point, I would say, if you're stuck and you're not able to play right now, it's an excellent outlet. And I was amazed, and I imagine most anybody would be, to find out just how much your audience, wherever you may be, how much they miss you and how much they will appreciate um, that you're able to still connect with them. I've gotten closer to my crowd um, than I ever would have thought, and it's been such a rewarding thing to do. After each performance, I'll go upstairs, and I'll go back through all the comments and answer people and write down their requests that they asked for that I didn't know or didn't see at the time, and I'll make sure I put that on a list and do that for the next show. And I've seen people who didn't know each other at all who started, talking to each other in comments, and now they're like really good friends in real life. Just, just through this, you actually get to see the community come together, and that's really neat. Um, and my wife would tell you that I was not doing well. I thought I was handling things fine. We were only a week into it. I thought I was fine. She disagrees and said that basically after that first show and seeing the response to it, that she was actually, I don't even know what the right word would be, but she was worried about me until that night. And that night she just said that this is what you're supposed to be doing, and it's so great to see that. And that's whenever I decided I would set a schedule of Mondays and Thursdays, because I didn't want to have to be competing with everybody who was doing it over weekends, and I didn't want to, oversaturate or anything. So I would anybody who's thinking about doing it, it's absolutely worth doing. It doesn't take a whole lot of technology. There, after I did this, I spent $80 on the iRig, which again I'm completely thrilled with. Um, but a friend of mine is actually, I think you may have had. Have you had a chance on
No, I don't believe so. What's his last name?
Chance Munsterman?
No.
Okay, he's another local guy here in Arlington. He actually did an entire how-to video of how to stream, and he used a much cheaper little cable that would have worked perfectly for what I was doing. Would have done the exact same thing without spending $80. But I'm happy with my purchase. It paid for itself many, many times over. No complaints. But yes, and especially now, there's a whole lot more help on how to do it now because so many people have had to. So I would just say jump in.
That's great. Before I forget, if your schedule permits, I would love to do a couple things with you sometime
Okay.
soon, and that is, I should probably set up a group for the Unstarving Musician because, like you said, the page just it's tough. And I think it would be fantastic to have you do just a casual walkthrough of your setup from the room that the backdrop that you did,
Yeah.
the iRig device that we're talking about, and just anything else you can think of, what Mel's been doing. I hate it, I hate it when there's a secret weapon wife in the background because I know that not everyone has one of those, but but I think that might be I think that would be cool for a lot of people to see, and certainly, I think even a number of your fans would like to see that, even if they're not musicians, just because they like it
That's
so much.
it's actually something I've considered doing anyway. And you had mentioned earlier too that if somebody's want to think about streaming, but they're not necessarily, well, like Brandon, who's he's a drummer and he sings, but he's not going to sit there and do a bunch of songs that's just drums and singing, or somebody who's not necessarily a vocalist. What I have seen some other people doing that I think is really interesting is people will do a rig rundown, or they'll do a little how-to video on certain things. I know Chris Responte did did one of those. I think where he just was like, "Hey, here's this cool little Strat that I bought, and I just did this. Check this out, and here's how this one little device works." Um, it's just any way you can get in contact and connect with your audience and your crowd, especially in these times when we're all apart. I mean, for one, it's very rewarding, and the other part of it too is it also reminds people that hey, you're still there, and as soon as you're able to go out, there's the hope that maybe that'll increase their desire to come and see you perform.
That's a great idea. I have this one friend in particular. I sent him the demo that that I sent to you today for a different reason. And the reason I sent it to him was he's a drummer. He's had some recording experience and has worked with um, a well-known producer based in San Jose, a noteworthy one. And I just wanted him to listen to the performance I did for the song I'm working on and say, "Hey, do you think this is good enough or should I give it another shot? I need, some." So I sent it to him and a few people, but I kind of knew, I wasn't surprised by this, but he said he's a drummer, right? So he hasn't been able to play anywhere, and I don't know where he's at, which is San Jose, California. I'm not sure the prospect of playing anywhere is on the horizon yet. So it's kind of a bummer for him. Fortunately, he has another leg to his career, which was also shut down for quite a while. But so he's back at that other part of his career. But I, I wanted to share something like this with him, people like him, because he's really great at. I was thinking today, I'm like, maybe he should do some blues covers because he's really great at blues shuffles. And
Hmm.
he actually has a fantastic space in his home where his kit is normally set up that I think he could dress up just a tiny bit like what you did with your your game room backdrop. And he could, demonstrate some shuffles, even though he thinks he's like, still learning. He's quite good, and he looks great. So anyway, I'm gonna run that by him. But you're right. There are all kinds of things we can do. I myself have been thinking about doing. Showing off my brand new kind of recording setup because this is a new world for me. Doing recording drums on my own and just showing people the challenges that I've been dealing with from the room, and talk about the mics I got and this Focusrite audio interface that I'm using. Blah blah blah. Some people are kind of into that, especially if they know you already.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, and that's the thing. Your audience is going to start with people that you know, but as you've seen, you guys have tuned in on a couple of them, but people will share it, people will start watching parties, and then you start getting, the sphere of influence starts to grow. Um, and I've gained, I don't know, I have no idea how many, but I've gained, probably at least double what I had going into this whole thing of people who are basically, they sit down every Monday and every Thursday. They put us up on the
That's
big
great.
screen, they hang out and they comment, and now they've got their kids involved, and then they're sharing it with their family, in California or what have you. I'm going to take a road trip in July, um, to a small private music fest in Oregon, just on a person's property, some friends we met in Belize. Um, and so it's a camping thing, and there's probably going to be like 30 people. Um, but just somebody's parents, I guess it was somebody who's been watching me. I got a message from somebody and said, "Hi, my name is so and so, and my daughter turned us on to you. We watched tonight. We really enjoyed it. We have we wanted to see if you'd be interested in doing a living room or a backyard show in Medford, Oregon, which happens to be where I'm going."
That's great.
I thought maybe they were associated with them, and it turns out they weren't. It was just that much of a coincidence.
What are the chances?
So, yeah, and they got their own little PA. I was like, all right, well, if I'm coming out that way anyway, sure, I'll do that. And they said, they'll hook me up with some cash and pass the hat and invite all their neighbors. I'll play on the back porch, and everybody will sit out on the lawn, and you know, that's my one breaking from the private party thing. But
That's cool.
but that never would have happened if it hadn't been for the opportunity really that it turned out to be to do these live streams.
And what do you think now that some live performers are making their way back into your routine, and you and I both realize that those could go away again because of the rise in cases that we're seeing with the pandemic. But what do you? Let's say it keeps, well, at some point, it may be quite a ways off, but at some point, there will be some semblance of our former normal, and at some point, I do believe we'll be able to play live shows more comfortably. I think they'll be considerably different than they once were, like everything else in our lives will be. But it brings me to the question of what do you think where do you think live streaming will fit into that future?
I already know a few venues that are going ahead and live streaming their shows. Now there are different avenues for them to do that. Obviously, there's the main one that I can't think of right off the top of my head, but I know that there's one of them where you can sell tickets.
Maybe
and
stage it, or
yes, that's what I think of, and it just wasn't coming to me. Yeah, no, stage it. You can do that. Um, I'm a little mixed on it. I think, particularly stage it. I'm like, if you're gonna stream, just stream for the people, and if you need to make money from it, put up the virtual tip jar. But they've already made the choice to come and see you. I would like that's more important to me is for people to go out. Eventually, if it's safe, I'd like to go see them. The normalcy of things later on, I think a lot more venues will probably stream live shows that they're having, probably partially because they just aren't going to be able to have the same amount of people in the building safely. But it's kind of a mixed. Again, it's kind of a mixed thing. I've seen some of them, and it's all a matter of how it's done. Um, because a static camera for 3 hours of a show, I don't know how interesting that's going to be. Um, like we've even talked about it, just doing it here. That because the software that we're using now, we could actually branch off and put a couple of iPhones on tripods in different at different angles, and she'd be able to switch in between them. We haven't quite gotten that industrious yet, but we've certainly talked about it, and I could see some bars actually having some pretty nice production. But then, of course, you're talking about someone to have to run that. It's all going to come down to the strength of the Wi-Fi signals and things like that. And there's all kind of little technical glitches. Every live show that I've promoted and said, "Hey, I'll be playing out at this place." Every single one, somebody invariably has commented, "Hey, are you going to stream this?" For myself, I'm just that's just an extra hassle I don't really want to deal with. I like to keep them separate, and also, if, I'm playing out in the world. Come out in the world and see if you feel safe, and if not, well, I'll be back online on Mondays and Thursdays. That's just kind of it's 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 certainly something that changes from week to week. I mean, there's no telling really what it's going to be, and I think my own opinion on it probably changes, on the day sometimes. Um, but I think streaming has turned on a lot of people to live music they wouldn't have seen otherwise. And I'm really actually hoping, and this is a little off that, but I'm kind of feeling like live music is having a little resurgence, at least in this area. I don't know about elsewhere, but with no sports, people can't go to big concerts, people can't go to sporting events. At the very least, right now, they can go to a club and see a band.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like a double-edged sword. I'm with you. I feel like there's a resurgence, yet, I was contacted recently by a nonprofit that is supporting jazz musicians in a particular area of the country that they were already having a hard time, and now they're now they're
Yeah,
having an even more difficult time. So, in some regards, it's crushed live music in some circles, but I, I think um, I think that it's one of these pivotal points in the business of music, especially for the independent artists, that we're going to discover some new things, like you are already. That we didn't know, we didn't need, and the market didn't need. But I think some good things will come of it. The challenge is, as an independent artist, are you willing and able to do the slight pivot so that you can be part of it? But some people, I've also heard things like some people have no interest in being uh, on a camera all night. They just want to play for people, and I understand part of that. If I were in your shoes, I would have done hopefully exactly what you've done, because I saw it. I was like, oh wow, this is a lot more I imagine. I was going to use the word imagine twice, but it had to have been a lot more than you imagined from day one, which you kind of said in the very beginning. I want to, before you respond to that, I want to get us off in a different direction before we run out of time here. Um, I want to ask you about some things that you may or may not be very tuned into, or haven't bothered to look at, maybe don't even have interest in. And I'm just curious, because there are some things that I'm exploring, and most of it's things that I contend, and I want to just bounce them off of you. And then one of them, at least, is something that I'm exploring, and I'm just kind of curious if any of this stuff, to what degree any of this stuff is on your radar. And if it's not, don't even worry about it. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. So, the first one is on online collaboration platforms. And when I've talked to a lot of people, I think the first thing they think about is like, well, yeah, I use Dropbox, and, I record some stuff and I put it up on Dropbox and send it to my friend. But I started looking into it after I spoke with the founder of a company called Soundstorming that has an app where you can share ideas right from your phone into an online community. So have you seen, and then, well, let me just tell you about another one really quick. So then I sought out and spoke with the founder of a platform called Compose, that with a K and a Z. um, and they are an online collaboration platform where people upload their projects, and they might need a drummer and a guitar player and a bass player or whatever. It's pretty cool. I don't think it's for everyone. And in fact, the founder told me in his case, that seems to be for musicians that are more about playing instruments than it is, say, people that are into loops and stuff. And it's also not for people who aren't a little bit tech nerdy, because tech nerdish, whatever, because there's just there's some tech involved in recording and uploading, stuff. You got to have a DAW, all that stuff. But are you familiar with Compose or Sound Better or Soundstorming or anything like what I described?
I'm not familiar with those particular ones. I did actually look pretty heavily into some different ones, and again, it's been 2 months ago, so I can't really remember what they were.
Okay.
Because Lovebox was immediately going to start streaming some shows together, and then when the stay-at-home order came down, we just didn't have the time. We didn't get it in before that happened, and so I was looking really heavily into software way that we could actually perform online. Now, for live performance together, it just wasn't viable. I mean, there's no way to get around latency issues, so I pretty much dropped at that point. But it does bring up an interesting idea of just like you said, of being able to share tracks here and there, and to be able to have a place where you can hear it come together right then. I mean, I guess is kind of what you're talking about, isn't it?
Well, so soundstorming is kind of like sharing the idea from the moment that you have it, sort of. So if you can think about the last time you had an idea for something that might become a song, one of the first places most of us record it these days are on our phone, right? Oh, I got to catch that.
Right.
So you play the guitar, which is what I did, right? And eventually I moved it to GarageBand, and then later it's on Logic Pro and all this. But Soundstorming lets you upload that very first moment, and they have a community of other people that do this, and then they start collaborating. I haven't really explored the community a lot, so I don't know what tools they're using for the collaboration piece. But they've had some story, they had a couple of stories to share with me that people that were so into the collaboration who didn't know each other before, they took it offline and actually published something, and had kind of an exciting story. Now with Compose, so my one example is I went on because I really wanted to find a user from the community that would a member that would talk to me about Compose, but I thought, I'm going to check it out. It sounds kind of interesting. So I find this guy who's like in Europe, and he's uploaded a bunch of tracks that he performed on keyboards that are prog rock, and they made me think of Yes. I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely would like to contribute some drums to that. So when I find the time, I'm going to upload some tracks to what he did, and see what he can use them, or maybe he'll get another drummer submit something. So that's kind of that's how that one works. And with Compose, and I don't know about with Soundstorming, but with Compose, so just hypothetically, if me and this gentleman and a couple other guys, or me and this guy, end up working on some stuff, um, they have some publishing tools. They have things where you can set up split sheets, which I don't know a lot about, but I know what they're for. And so you could actually end up publishing music with the help of Compose if you want it, but you're not, from what I understand, you're not restricted, to using your ideas are not their property or anything. So they're just really into building a cool community, and they have their money model is they have, I think, a for pay option where you get more features.
Okay, that's really interesting. No, I that was not on my radar actually. It's really cool. My collaboration, software is I drive the 2 blocks down to Chris Respani's house and hang out with him in his studio.
Yep.
And yeah, which next week. And again, I have some questions for you on that track that you sent me in a minute. Um, but yeah, that would actually be very, very cool. And I'm kind of in the same boat you are as really trying to learn this home recording thing. I have a really nice setup downstairs in that same room. It's just off to the side. But using Pro Tools, and one of the reasons I wanted to use Tools is because I could immediately take a session down to Chris's or take it over to the Spider Pop studio, Spider Pop Records, which you've had Lannie Flowers on a couple of times, haven't you?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I play bass for him. Just saying that for people listening. But because I have some access to these larger studios where there's a big enough room to have drums and all this, it'd be nice to be able to go and take something over there and then bring it back and mix it here at the house. So, but it's a whole different world, and it's a whole different skill set that I am sadly very, very behind the curve on. But baby steps.
Yeah, I just started. I'm having fun with it, but I know my limitations already. I think it was a hurdle to find the equipment and then execute a performance and get it on tape, quote unquote, in a form that I think is usable for a decent recording. And then there's so much more
Yeah.
to doing it, even if you're playing acoustic drums like I am. Okay, let's see if how many of these I can get through. I'll try to keep these short. So
Okay.
the other things I wanted to ask you about are my contention. Let me pose it to you this way. Have any of these come into greater focus for you in recent months or years? The first one is the need for a solid web presence outside of social media.
I would say that's diminished probably quite a bit. I mean, most people don't pay attention to, I guess, what you'd call brick and mortar websites. I mean, we still have one, but by and large, I think most people come to us for information through social media.
Mm-hmm. What about email marketing?
Email, I started years ago just because the program I was using changed, and it wouldn't allow me to basically send out everything at once, and I didn't want to have to go through and just do multiple because I had somewhere, I don't know, 2,000 email addresses, and I didn't want to have to batch them into 100. So I just said, nope, forget it.
Yep. How about branding and community building?
Now, branding and community building are very, very important. I've again been very mindful of that throughout this, and probably even more so than I've been, had this whole shutdown not happened. Like I said, using the OBS software that we stream with to be able to do an overlay, to actually have a graphic overlay to be able to put the logo up there. If we did a love box thing, we would do one with our logo, and having the title of the Sasquatch Monday or Questionable Action Thursday, just have something there to give it that weight. And I spoke earlier about the community building, and this has been the best tool by far that I've had to really interact with my audience more than I would have ever thought. So,
okay, and then I'll make this one the last one. I might talk to you offline about a couple others, but What about the various platforms that are out there for community building, for learning, or for teaching?
I haven't had a lot of um, I just kind of come at things very much from a performance standpoint. Hey, I'm going to play some songs, uh, or when times are, before all this started, hey, I'm playing some songs at this place. Please come see me here. I will say that, and this might touch back into branding. I'm not sure, but I'm very mindful of not beating people over the head. It's why I kind of stopped doing the email thing. I was like, you know what? I'm going to put it up. If people want to come find me, they will come find me. They know where I have multiple places that they will see this information. But I don't really do events because I don't want to just fill up people's inboxes with stuff. I don't pay attention to them. I know so many bands and so many things like that. It's all a blur. I don't even hone in on something. I'm like, if I have a night off, I'll go and actively look to see who's playing at what bar, or if I want to go see a specific band, I'll look and see where they have to be. And maybe that's just me. And maybe I'm, being a little dismissive of the casual fan who kind of needs to be beaten over the head, but with information, not any other way. But that's just kind of where I've landed on it.
Yeah, no, well, and I guess I'll share this for, other people that are listening, on your last point, that what I have found over the years is that there are different people that want to find out about you in different ways. There are different people that want to come see you in different venues, or in the different bands that you play in. So like when I talk about different bands, like when I was in San Jose, I played with an acoustic trio. I played with different genre electric quartets, and they all had kind of different audiences, but I had people that were following me around in those bands. Some of them were, sort of crossing over into the different ones, but some of them wanted to specifically see me for like the acoustic gig that was at the winery. And I also found that, some people, they wanted to get the email. Some people are finding, you on Facebook. So it's sort of one of those, it's kind of like podcasting. With podcasting, they say, put your effing podcast everywhere because you want to make it as easy as possible for people to find you. So that's what I learned. But
the thing that hinders me on some of that is just that, well, again, before all this, I was playing in 5 different bands, usually 4 or 5 nights a week. So, I was, hustling and flow. That's a lot of emails to try and keep up with. It's a lot of things and
absolutely.
At some point you have to have time to, maintain a household, and also, just keeping up with all the online things. So just keeping up just social media alone,
It's a lot.
it's very time consuming. Yeah, it's a lot, and it's a lot to keep straight in your head. Reminders on my phone have become, pretty much the saving grace of my entire life. And I've just, that extra step of then doing emails, and then, making sure that so and so, that certain groups are invited on events. It just was too much, and so I took the coward's way out, and I just said I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, I think it speaks to the importance of having a team, whether it's your secret weapon wife, or it's your bandmates, or it's someone that you hire. Because yeah, it's true. We only have so much time in the day, and some people. I know some people that just live and breathe every moment what they're doing for their music or whatever they do. But we're not all that way. Some of us have families or whatever. We divide our time up how we divide it, and we sleep however much we sleep, hopefully, plenty. And
Right.
some of us can manage more and do things faster than others, for sure. But Neil, thanks for spending time with me today. It's great talking with you again. And if you got a minute, hang out, because I want to talk to you offline here.
Thank you so much.
This episode was powered by ConvertKit. More than just an email marketing company, ConvertKit is focused on landing pages too, giving beginner creators everything they need to start building their email list. I've been a ConvertKit user since early 2016, and I love it. Their new free plan allows creators to make unlimited landing pages and forms. With ConvertKit, you can choose from multiple templates, add personalization and design, include an incentive email, create thank you pages, manage subscribers, and send broadcast emails. The support and educational resources offered by ConvertKit are top-notch too. That's important to me. It should be to you as well. To learn how ConvertKit can help you connect with your audience so that you can make a living doing the work you love, go to unstarvingmusician.com/convert or look for the link in the show notes for this episode. If you have feedback, questions, comments, suggestions about the podcast, my guests, me, please visit unstarvingmusician.com/feedback. You can leave me a quick voicemail right there on that page, right from your browser. All my other contact info is there too, and I'd love to hear from you. Find links for just about everything talked about in this episode at unstarvingmusician.com/podcast. Thank you for listening and sharing with your friends. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love.